All right, welcome to the Continue Freedom podcast. So I've got my buddy Chuck back in the house again. How you doing, buddy?
We're doing great.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for coming back. I love it when we do this. This is a good conversation. The last one was fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was great. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed doing a deal with a terrorist. I mean, bro, I don't know when we got into the habit of negotiating with terrorists, in particular, allowing someone to live out their natural life after the death of, there was 3,000 people on day one who were killed, and then thousands and thousands killed since in the combat, and thousands more will be lost. Tens of thousands will ultimately cost tens of thousands of lives, and we've killed hundreds of thousands of people, civilians, just as part of combat and other combatants. This has been a massive, bloody conflict that stems back to Osama bin Laden, to Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and to, I forget the other guy's name, but the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was obviously the big dog in all of that. So the fact that we would offer them a plea deal, I don't know what they gave, but to offer them a plea deal, I think is shameful. I honestly do.
Yeah, on behalf of you and all the many veterans I count as family and friends, I got full on pucker butt when I heard this story. And not just because you guys poured out on behalf of me and so many people that did, but on behalf most especially for the more than 3,000 people who died innocently at the World Trade Center on September 11, 2001. I was in a class called Motor Development at the college I went to. I was sitting in class next to my best buddy. They said classes are canceled, go home, our country's under attack. And from that moment until last week when I heard the news that we were negotiating with the mastermind of the attack, I felt secure that we as a country were going to take care, in whatever way you want to consider that taking care, that we were going to take care of the mastermind because he committed the most atrocious act to this country in the last 150 years.
Yeah.
It's obscene. It's disgusting. And the idea that we would give him any type of plea deal for anything is gross.
Yeah.
And I'm embarrassed on behalf of you. I heard last week the stat that 3 firefighters a week still, 23 years later, 3 firefighters a week still are dying due to the effects of inhaling the gas and ashes and everything from the World Trade Center.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It extends far beyond. People get they understand what went on, they don't understand what goes on in combat necessarily, but they understand the war aspect of it. But yeah, you're right. The firefighters, all the first responders, those people are dealing with issues and will be for ages and ages because of, all the toxic fumes and all the, sediment and all that kind of stuff. And their families are suffering because of it. And there's people out there, thankfully, that are fighting for those folks, I couldn't believe it. And I teeter, Chuck, honestly, on the death penalty sometimes, but there are very clear-cut instances where that you lose your right to life. Like, that's just it. Like, you no longer have the privilege of gracing this earth. That's the way I look at it. There has to be retribution. I mean, that's really what it is. And that guy most certainly deserves to die.
The world will benefit when that person no longer is breathing air.
Yeah.
That's not to say that someone needs to run over and kill him or assassinate him. No, that's not what I'm saying. We can have a civil discourse on whether the right thing to do is leaving him in prison until he expires or taking him out. We can have a civil discourse about that. And that's fair. I'm with you. I have very mixed feelings about the death penalty. In the same way I have very mixed feelings about pro-choice and pro-life. And we can have a civil discourse about that.
Yeah. I don't have any mixed choice about pro-choice and pro-life.
I don't when it comes to the life of the infant. Let me be clear.
Right.
But my point in bringing that up is we can have a civil conversation about what the right way to handle this is.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a civil conversation with us, right? Like, this is a person that chants death to America every day, like the nation of Iran. This is a person that genuinely hates that America exists.
Yeah.
And it's fine. If we want to put him in a box and lock him up and leave him there forever, so be it. But he lost the right to have a plea of anything, a plea for a cigarette, a plea for a glass of water, or in this case, a plea for a sweetheart deal to live out his natural born days in some cushy seat.
Yeah.
And the same is true for every mass shooter. The same is true for every racist. The same is true for every perpetrator of crime in a massive way in the United States. Like,
Yeah.
if you want to go to a different country and argue about that, that's fine. But in the United States, we believe in law and order.
Yeah.
We believe that there's a right way to do things. We believe that if you commit crimes against America, that you will pay in a significant way.
Bingo. You hit the nail on the head on that one, buddy. Um, yeah, but politicians making political, I don't know. I just don't understand. I haven't heard, maybe you've heard, but I have not heard what had to come out of that. What does he have to offer that would warrant such a plea deal? But maybe that'll come out in the
Well,
days to come. But I know that a lot of
well,
people, well, go ahead.
yeah, my understanding is from the sources I listened to, is it's all about Joe Biden saying that he intended to close Guantanamo Bay prison before he left office, and now that window has sped up because he's no longer fit for office, and somebody else is running the seats behind him, and so they want to put a rubber stamp on, look how good a job he did, and so they're going to hurry up and try and close Guantanamo Bay prison before he leaves office. What do they have to do before they close Guantanamo Bay? They have to move these prisoners elsewhere. Well, he's never been to a trial.
Yeah.
He's never been formally charged with anything. He's never sat in court. Not one person that's a victim of 9/11, losing a family member, losing a first responder, not one person has been able to stand in front of him and
Yeah.
say, "This is what you did to me."
Yeah.
And that defies the logic and the law, not just logic, not just heart, defies the law of the United States.
Isn't it crazy to think how quick they could put a trial together for Donald Trump, and yet the guy who perpetrated 9/11, it still hasn't
No,
happened for
no,
him?
that's not important. God, like, what are you
It's just,
talking about? Like,
golly.
he mean tweeted some people. That's silly.
That's
we
where
don't need
that's
that.
yeah. I mean, well, as that's a great segue because we're talking about the guy who kicked off 9/11, and we had a lot of people that deployed in support of 9/11, and somebody that I talked about on my yesterday's podcast, but I got to bring up again, is the guy running for vice president, Tim Walz. And this dude, I thought, okay, I'll be honest, Chuck, when I first heard about it, I thought, okay, maybe this is just a one-off. I saw a couple of reports about it, and he said it in the spur of the moment politically. No, this has guided this guy's political career in its entirety. He has been saying that he's a retired command sergeant major. This is back in 2018. This is him marching. This one was pretty sick. Enduring Freedom Veterans for Carry. So he's at a political rally or out walking the streets with his signage saying he supports Kerry, alluding to the fact that he's an Enduring Freedom vet, and the guy never went as part of Operation Enduring Freedom. There's videos out here, and they keep coming out. They're coming out like crazy. As early as 2008 is what I've found. And in this one,
real honor to be able to pay tribute to the
this.
34th Red Bull Infantry Division and to your families and friends as you prepare to deploy in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. As a 24-year veteran of the National Guard and the Red Bull Division and a retired Command Sergeant Major.
Lie. He wasn't a retired Command Sergeant Major. I mean, this guy he took it and he ran with it. And I know what he's doing. He got conditionally promoted into that position temporarily. He didn't meet any of the conditions, which means you don't get to keep that rank. This is so painfully obvious to the veterans out there. And yet he just took it and ran with it and was like, nah, I'm not really worried about it. And it's crazy that he made it this far because the vetting that goes into, I'm sure, a vice presidential candidate would have picked up on this, and it didn't. Or they saw it and said, you know what? We just don't care. And I'll end by saying this, that there's a lot, and then I'll throw it to you. But there's a lot of people out here on social media. Brian Krasenstein, I don't know if you know the Krasensteins. They're big on social media. This guy he defies all logic and all expectations of stupidity. If you want my honest opinion, it is just an echo, just constantly echoing anything that the left is telling him to echo. There's no independent thought, and he says, as a veteran, you are as a veteran, you are disgusting. Waltz carried a gun in Operation Enduring Freedom in Italy, not as part of Enduring Freedom because he never went to Afghanistan. And he said he served our nation for 24 years and was a command sergeant major. It's not the fact that he wasn't a command sergeant major. It's that he didn't retire as one, and he keeps telling people he did. He carried a weapon. I don't think that they allow you to carry weapons, by the way, in the European theater when you're when you're walking around in Italy, going to the coffee shops and sipping cappuccino. And so I told him, this was my tweet in response to him, just bow out of this one. Like there's a certain point when you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about, bow out of that argument, because this is one that the legitimate vet bros are going to call you on every time, and they are in droves with Tim Walz. And I will say this: your service is enough. Whether you went or you did not go, some people the timing never worked out for them. He still served honorably for 24 years, right? And if he had left it at that, there is no criticism there. But he had to take it farther. He had to embellish his career, say that he did things he did not do, say that the video that I was going to pull it up, but I won't, saying you shouldn't have these weapons of war that I carried in combat or that I carried in war. Well, you never went to war, guy. And so it infuriates me. And I will, sorry, I can't, shut me up, Chuck, but I will say that the veterans, most of the veterans are on the right side of this. They're saying this is jacked up. You embellished your career and you kind of put a, as opposed to putting an asterisk on the end of it, you kind of muddied the water of your military career by ending on a lie, right? There's a lot of veterans out there who my brothers and my sisters, I got it. You support the Democrat Party, perfectly fine. But to start saying that him lying about this is okay, I think that's a place where we could agree we probably shouldn't do that. Say he made a mistake, say that he told a lie for politics, and move on. But don't enable that kind of stuff. We can't enable that sort of stuff. What are your thoughts on it?
Oh man, there's so much to say there. My old pal Tampon Tim. I'm retired as Big Bird. I don't know if I've told you that before, but I retired as Big Bird. Now, that's not true, but as long as I say it and you believe it, I can continue to say it. Right? I mean, I didn't deploy on behalf of this country. I didn't serve in the military on behalf of this country. And so I have no right to say that I did. Similarly, you have not done the same jobs that I've done. And so it's not your business or your place to say, oh, I've done what Chuck did. That's not true.
Right.
And I respect you enough to say what you did was great. And I'm grateful for your service on behalf of me and my family. And you respect the jobs that I've done. And that's okay. And it doesn't mean we're, picking out roses and we're singing Kumbaya every day. We have the freedom to disagree in this country, but we believe in free speech in this country. But to outright lie and to use it as a way for your political benefit to get to places that you want to be is obscene. This man is an absolute lunatic. And he has gone from serving our country as a National Guardsman, which is an honorable thing to do. That's great. Thank you for doing that. You probably responded to emergencies in the state of Minnesota, and I appreciate you doing it. Thanks for going out and shoveling snow or whatever else you needed to do. You've gone from that and teaching high school history to saying that you're a command sergeant major, which you were not, because you didn't finish the pathway to earn that as a full-on title. You got out before your unit left. You've gone from doing honorable things as a high school educator to saying you're a military veteran in a way that you're not, to saying that we need to put tampons in 10-year-old boys' bathrooms.
Is that where that nickname came from?
That's correct.
Okay. Golly.
To now doing gender affirming tourism in the state of Minnesota, to now luring that or now using that as a way to have the second highest office in the United States.
Yeah.
Tim Walz, you're not qualified. I would appreciate it if you would retire as the all shucks governor from Minnesota. Go back and teach American history. When you teach American history, make sure you actually teach how history started, right? That the Republican Party is not the party of slavery and divisiveness and all the awful things that you guys say. But the Republican Party is the party that had Abraham Lincoln advocating to emancipate people. Mm-hmm. The Republican Party is the party that advocated for integration of schools, not segregation of schools.
Yep.
The lunacy that this guy could have the second highest office in the United States of America and could be a breath away from the highest office. We like, to you and to other veterans out there, please listen. Please think about what you're actually saying. Please consider all the facts. Don't let emotion enter into the rabbit hole of making a decision like this, because this guy is selling you just like Joe Biden did 4 years ago on, oh, shucks, man. Folks, come on, folks.
Come on, man.
Folks.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
And it's just not true.
No.
It's just not true. He did not serve the United States of America in Afghanistan. He did not carry a weapon probably anywhere, candidly.
Yeah.
The
I don't think
National
he did.
Guard and honorable service that they do that I'm aware of is responding to statewide emergencies. Sometimes that's to stand in front of a protest. Sometimes it's to respond to a weather emergency. But he did that in an admirable and honorable way, presumptively, for a long time. Let that be it.
Yeah.
And then stop selling divisiveness in this country.
I will tell you too, though, Chuck, that I called his his actions that, so you got it at 20 years you can retire. He re-upped for an additional 6 years, right? So after he hit 20, he said, I'm going to go sign a 6-year contract. He didn't serve the full 6-year contract. That's an anomaly in most cases. People generally fulfill their contract. So if you say, I'll give you as an example, you sign a $30,000 signing bonus or a $10,000 signing bonus, provided you give 4 years or 6 years or whatever, and we're going to promote you into this particular position. Now, that oftentimes doesn't come with money, but it just depends. They can package it any way they want. You go into that position, and they say, you will serve in this position, you will go to this school, and as a result of that, you will get to retire at this rank. You will be locked in at this particular rank, and it was the rank of sergeant major. But command sergeant major, you're in the position. So if you're not in a command position at a battalion, brigade, division, whatever, you're not a command sergeant major. But anyway, I'm assuming and my understanding is he got promoted into that position. He did not meet all the requirements. And then when his unit got their mobilization orders, because there were a lot of, we were under manpower constraints back in the day. And the National Guard, they really got hosed in a lot of places. And they were sending them to some rough places because we just needed the boots on the ground. So anyway, the minute that comes down, he says, I'm going to do away with my obligation. That's my beef, is I'm not even going to finish my service obligation. I got to get out of here quick. And in my mind, that was an act of cowardice. You can watch my video from yesterday, and I kind of go into a little more detail. But you were saying that, talking about free speech, you're segueing this stuff like crazy, buddy. I'm telling you. You're on point.
Here to help.
On point.
I'm a good Robin to the Batman.
You're good Robin to the Batman, man. So this one, we're talking about free speech. The Michigan Secretary of State basically says that neighbors should snitch on each other to combat election misinformation. And okay, essentially what they say is they've got this, if you see something, say something messaging about what they believe is election interference, and the places that they are sending people are PolitiFact and Snopes. If you want accurate information, go to PolitiFact and Snopes. And I don't know if you know about those organizations, bro. That is not where you get accurate information. I'm sorry, but that is heavily politically swayed stuff. So this is the difference, I think, between the left and the right in a lot of ways. The right, the conservative side, we are for you can make your own decision, man. You're an adult. You're a grown man, you're a grown woman, and you can be presented with whatever information is out there. You are smart enough to siphon through all the BS and find what is true and what is false, what is accurate and what is not. And you may, that may leave you in some gray area, but that's up to you to do the research and to take that further. The left says you are not smart enough. This is the way they treat people. You are not smart enough to make your own decisions. Don't try to do this. This was like in COVID, right? How many times did we hear, don't do your own research? If you do your own research, you're a fool. If you do your own research, you're putting lives in danger. It was, come to us for all of your information. We are the arbiters of truth and fact, and not you, the people. And that leads to what we saw, censorship and all that. So
I'm confused. That sounds a lot like socialism. Wait. Sorry, that's my bad. Don't say that word.
Right.
Moving on. I think, it's honestly a perfect segue from Tim Walz, because in Minnesota, when he was governor during COVID, they had a call-in line for people that were not obeying masking and segregation and separation things, where you could call in on your neighbor. I mean, think about how crazy this is. This literally happened in my neighborhood where I live as well, where there's kids during COVID that went up to the playground. They're outside. They're running around the playground. They're being kids. The cops got called. What are we doing? What are we doing in society where we have a hotline to call in on someone walking around their backyard or talking on the phone or whatever the other examples are. This is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. It's we have moved so far left of center. I mean, when you're able to actually look at policies and say Bill Clinton in today's life would be a Republican,
Right.
we know we've arrived at the crazy cycle,
Yeah.
right? And
Well, I think too that it's,
the reality is we don't have free speech. I mean,
yeah. Yeah. Well,
we don't have free speech.
I look at
This
YouTube.
podcast and others gets targeted and spammed and isolated by all the big government mechanisms. And it's sad.
Well,
We used to live in a society where we could have a civil discourse and that be okay.
yeah, and the private entities that are working in close coordination with them. We saw the FBI and their communications with Google and other folks to censor information during COVID, to censor information around elections. I mean, there's a close coordination. We've seen the emails, so we know that it exists. And I think there's a deeper point. You were talking about that in your neighborhood, that was a thing that was going on. Think of the cohesive social units and entities that we have. You're a very social person. I know you obviously very well, and so you know your neighbors and you know the people around you. I know the people. I finally live in a neighborhood where I can be closer with the neighbors around me. I know who lives around in my area. And those are small little cohesive units that when things start to fall apart, you can turn to. And when they inject the secrecy, like like the Nazis did and the Maoists did, and I mean, socialism and communism have been, and fascism, they do this sort of thing. You have to create suspicion among neighbors. You have to create distrust among neighbors because that's further, disrupting those cohesive units that people can turn to when times get bad. And it happens in the church. It happens in the schools. It happens, I mean, in every entity. This is where, and it's kind of obvious. The playbook is pretty obvious. It's right out of Das Kapital.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. You couldn't say that any better. And if you want more recent, as in last 100 years proof, look at what happened in Cuba, right?
Oh yeah.
What happened? This young, energetic soldier says, "Hey, we should all follow me. Don't listen to what the rest of the world says. I'm going to take care of you." Sidebar, sidebar, sidebar. He becomes in power. Now everyone is working to take care of his needs. Right?
Right.
Everyone is working to take care of one person. I had a cab driver in the last, 30 days. I'm trying to remember where that was. Doesn't matter. Who had immigrated from Cuba in the last 2 years. And I was asking him, because I speak pretty good Spanish, I was asking him about his experience immigrating from Cuba. He's late 50s, maybe early 60s. And he said in Cuba, the maximum amount you're allowed to make every month is $3,000. And $1,800 of it, after you make it, immediately goes to the government. To pay for everything you need.
Wow.
So the most you can take home after you work a full-time job to pay for all your needs is $1,200. You got to pay for your rent or mortgage. You got to pay for your car. You got to pay for your groceries. You got to pay for everything after the government gets their check. That's what we're looking at. That's actually the idea and behind this socialized experiment with restricting people's rights to decide whether or not they want to get vaccinated, or calling in on your neighbors. Like you're elevating government to a place it was never designed to be in this experiment called United States of America.
Right.
The United States of America were created to decentralize a monarchy so that people have rights, not one person.
Right. I mean, no, that's a perfectly valid point. And we're seeing it in Canada right now too. When you talk about socialized medicine, they are, and this is kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but when we were talking about before the show, euthanasia, and in America, how this has become a popular thing. In Canada, it already is. And I should have checked the numbers before we started, but people are starting to agree with this now in America, legalizing euthanasia, which is, I mean, there's so many moral issues. I know that there are a lot of Christian organizations out there. I think the Alliance for Hippocratic Medicine, I believe, is working on this one, but trying to stop euthanasia from coming to America because it is in Canada. And I don't think that the numbers have been released, but Canada has had, for the first time ever, a decline in their life expectancy. And a lot of people are equating that to the rise in euthanasia because they have a medical healthcare system that cannot sustain itself. And that people that essentially you have death boards and death committees. Okay, who's going to get treatment and who isn't, which is an obvious byproduct of socialism. When you socialize a medical system, you run out of resources, right? I mean, excuse me. But this is, coming to America, they want to, I guess the question behind it is, what are the justifiable reasons for it if you believe in it? Because you can take that as far as you want. It could be depression, right? Which is treatable. Depression is treatable. It could be, you could just be lonely. You could be uncomfortable in your own body, things that are fixable with counseling and other things. But they say, just kill yourself. Just get you off the books because you're not going to stress our system. It benefits us as a federal government. I mean, bro, how in the world did we get to a point where we're talking about medically induced suicide for people?
I'm just honestly, I'm equal parts brokenhearted and horrified that less than 100 years after World War II, less than 100 years after all four of our grandfathers came home from World War II and came back to the baby boom, right? Came back to, you just freed the world from Nazi oppression. Get a job, start families, make lots of babies. This is the American dream we are talking about.
Yeah.
And fast forward 80 years, 83 years since Pearl Harbor. And now we're in a place where we're actively trying to promote an idea where it's better to be dead than it is alive.
Yeah.
Like I'm a father, and it's chaos. Like having kids in school is chaos in terms of trying to protect their mind from what they can hear. But to know that this is happening on a government level is, man, we've lost our way. Like what I hate to invoke Andy Griffith and Mayberry, but like what happened to the idea of a society that functioned with valuing the small things,
Right.
a hard day's work, a good meal around your table? Like this is crazy. We
Yeah.
should be having more babies rather than less.
Yeah.
Right? This
You're
is
100% right.
a diatribe now, but if you look at what's happening on the southern border, it's because everybody else on planet Earth wants to come here.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the freest, richest, best country on planet Earth. And if you don't want to be here, maybe go to the southern border and take a look. Like go experience it for yourself. I've been down there.
Yeah.
And go see what it's like. People from everywhere, whether they're good people or bad people, are trying to come into this country. And that's not an emotional statement. It's just a fact. And then we're actively promoting in Michigan state government a way to not be here.
Yeah.
Wait, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing, guys? Hold on. Like it used to be a sign of I mean this both literally and figuratively, but it used to be a sign of wealth and status that you had kids, right? Like my paternal grandfather was one of 11 kids. Now I never met him. He passed away before I was born, but he was one of 11 kids. My maternal great grandfather was one of 18. Like that was a status symbol, particularly in the Great Depression, because you needed kids to help carry the work,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it was a sign of wealth and achievement and pride.
On my mom's side, they didn't have a lot of. It wasn't that they had a lot of money, but they had farms, and so they had. My one grandmother had 11, or it was, I always forget with my grandmother and grandfather, 11 brothers, sisters, and 12 or 13 brothers and sisters. I mean, it was these massive families, and it was, obviously this, you're talking about expanding your bloodline, and you are creating all these new, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of ways we can go with it. I'm going to hit the numbers on this here in just a second, back to the euthanasia piece of it. But I feel like that the feminist movement has been one of the culprits in this population decline, because we have taken women in their, this ability to gestate life and turned it into an evil thing, turned it into a bad thing. And they say, no, you serving in a job, working 9 to 5, that's where your value is going to lie. But the value goes to those companies. It doesn't go to increasing, building our society, maintaining our society, and helping our civilization thrive. It instead turns you into another widget in the machine. And that's our job, by and large, historically. The guys are supposed to go, we'll go do the widgets, we'll work the 9 to 5, and you raise good, strong American kids to carry on for generations. And they've been told that's a bad thing. And you can even trace that to the abortion movement, right? Where a lot of these kids, when I watch the man on the street interviews with college kids, they compare babies in a mother's womb to a parasite. They're like, it's literally sucking life from that and it's like, no, golly, you don't understand how, amazing and beautiful that is. It's not a parasite, obviously. It's a human being. And they've diluted what that is over time for these kids. And they bought into it. They buy it because the authority figures in their lives are telling them that that's what it is. And
Yeah, and look, I come from a family, and I'm married into a family, I should say, that has generations of mental health issues, and so I don't take this lightly. I don't take it lightly at all. In fact, to the opposite, I really dignify it in the sense that I recognize that mental health is a real issue, and if you're struggling and battling depression, that's real.
mm-hmm.
If you're suicidal, that's real. But our responsibility shouldn't be to help you jump off ship.
Right.
It should be to keep you on the ship.
Yeah.
And there are no exceptions to that in my brain, candidly. I can't think of a reason why me not being God get the right, and this is where we come back to something earlier. I really struggle with understanding my responsibility with the death penalty. I'm not God.
Yeah.
Where do I get the right to decide it's okay to kill somebody?
Right.
Why would I be an advocate for that? That's crazy. If someone's experiencing a mental health crisis, my job should be to help them.
Yeah.
I will
say,
it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, I will say that the number here. The Gallup poll found over 7 in 10 Americans believe doctors should be allowed by law to end the patient's life by some painless means if the patient and his or her family request it. 70%, Chuck. Over 70%. It's absolutely that's a monstrous leap. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought that it was that many people. And Republicans are still over 60%, because you would think that the folks that tend to lean, the medical community tends to lean to the left, from my understanding. And so you would think that most of the people on the left would agree with this. Most of the people on the right would be, I would figure in the 30 or 40%. But when the bulk of the country, based on this one particular Gallup poll, says that nearly 3/4, I mean, that's dangerous territory, man. And mark my words, as medicine becomes more socialized, it's going to become more of an issue. But to bring up an additional, to kind of segue us again into this, is the declining birth rate. So we're talking about ending people's lives when we're in population decline as a country, and a lot of the developed world is. Poland, Ireland, Czech Republic, Colombia, South Korea, Singapore, France. We're up here in the U.S. We're at negative 1.9 for 22 to 23, and it's dropped markedly just year over year. How many? And I'm trying to find the number here. I thought I had it in it. The UK has gone from 1.79 to 1.45, 1.78 to 1.14 in Chile. This is. South Korea has gone from 1.2 to 0.72. I mean, this is monstrous population decline, and now we're finding ways to end life. Like, it just doesn't compute, man. It really doesn't. And we could go. I don't even think it's conspiratorial at this point. When they let it slip at the World Economic Forum, and when they let it slip, when they're sitting up there in Davos talking about the future of the world, and every single one of them, from Bill Gates to Kamala Harris, has said it. We're doing great things with population reduction, with reducing the population. This plays right into that globalist playbook, because they have this misconception that we need to reduce the population back to, well, if you listen to Jane Goodall says we need to be 1 billion people on the planet. And she said, and this was years ago, if I could press a button and painlessly get our population back down to 1 billion people, I would do it. I was like, that's sadistic. That's sadistic. You say that you would wipe, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's, bro. But they think that the planet, this is worshiping the creation, not the creator. And that's kind of what it's become. It's become their deity, the planet has, and they buy into it wholeheartedly, even at the expense of human life.
Yeah, it's just crazy. And it's just heartbreaking, honestly. if you're able to take a step back from it as a human on Earth, or in this case, as Americans, if you're able to take a step back from it and just kind of look at all the chess pieces, I'm going to rabbit trail down something else if I don't stop myself. So I'm going to stop myself.
No,
But
go ahead. I don't care. Rabbit trails are
you look,
fun.
I'll come back to it. If you look at the chess pieces and consider the voices, it's all about more control. It's all about someone else telling you how to behave. And I don't know about you, I own my house. Where I'm sitting right now, I own this. I live on an acre. This is mine. If I want to pee in my backyard, by God, I'm going to go out there and pee in my yard. Nobody can tell me otherwise.
Right.
But the stuff that is being legislated and advocated for in the U.S. right now, forget the world, but in the U.S. right now, is based off of more control, not more freedom. I mean, this podcast is called Continue Freedom. That's what our country was founded on.
Yeah.
Do you actually have the nuts to say the people that founded this country were bad or were doing things wrong? Because you're, as an American citizen, you're a benefactor of that, right? You have benefited from, flawed as they may have been. The founding fathers had this idea of free people. And so now what we're doing is we're trying to say, no, let me take this back. Don't create kids, take yourself out, lower your carbon footprint, blah, 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 blah. And then what they're doing on the side, if you're John Kerry as an example, is you're saying lower your carbon footprint. You're flying in your private jet.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, it's, again, separate rabbit trail, but like if you're listening to them actually speak and actually kind of rabbit trailing their actual thoughts, they don't make sense in terms of what the core values of the United States are. They're not the same thing.
Right.
They might be something that sounds like a good poster to get them elected, but they're not the same thing.
Right.
It's not about a free and civil society. It's about them controlling society. Right. It's the opposite of what they're telling you. It's like, hey, I was a command sergeant major. I was not.
Right. Well, and it's the revisionist history is a key piece of that. So we see it from taking down statues and from editing what kids get in school. I say editing, really, excluding certain pieces of history. And kids are now have kids into college kids and all that. The indoctrination system is more or less complete for them. And they now have this flawed understanding of what our founding was. They focus on what is, I mean, I hate to say it's not superficial, but a tertiary thing. Look at the core of what they did, which was drafting our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution and setting up our judicial system and setting up all these establishing the framework for our freedom and and understanding how that got us to where we are today. Well, not necessarily today, but you got to go back about 50 years before they started really screwing it up. But what got us to that point of prosperity? And instead, they focus on the fact that they were slave owners, despite everybody in the world was trafficking slaves. It wasn't a uniquely Western thing. Focusing on the fact that the African slave trade in America was black. Okay, well, that doesn't, they don't tell you about the, over 1 million white slaves that there were on the Barbary Coast, because slave trading was universal. It has been for millennia. And instead focusing on the fact that, yes, while it was an initial evil in this country, just like it was in other countries, we were the ones who fought a civil war to eradicate it. And then who had a massive movement in the 60s to restore full rights to African Americans in this country. And they don't even understand that it was the Republican Party who did all of those things. You know what I mean? So
no, that's wrong. That hurts my feelings. You should stop saying those things. And relatedly, but importantly, yeah.
But
it's just impossible to revisit those facts and not also say what is more loving. Let's assume the worst about America. Let's assume the worst about our founding fathers. If all those things are true, if every one of those things is true, what's the more loving thing to do? To now give someone the freedom to create life? to now give someone the permission to grow their family and their inheritance and their legacy. I mean, when I say inheritance, I'm using the biblical term, but I really mean legacy.
Yeah.
Um, or to restrict it and say, don't create more kids.
Yeah.
What's the more loving response? Is it to say, don't have more kids, or is it to say, do what's best for your family?
Right.
Because I think the answer is the opposite. I think the answer is the second one.
Yeah.
I think the answer is if Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, he did. That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
Let's assume he was a terrible human being and should never have been around. Okay, let's assume that. If we're trying to rebound from that mistake, what's the responsibility now? To give someone the freedom to do what they want, or to restrict their freedom?
Well, but I think, yeah, I think you're right. But it's also when they say that there are inherent biases in people and you get into the critical race theory and all this sort of stuff, you're using an evil to fix what they perceive as an evil, right? It is using racial division to fix this racial division that they say exists in this country. But it's the very racial division that they start pushing in college, which is giving people, there's a space for black people, but white people can't be there. That's going back to 1965. That's going back to the very thing that we fought very hard to get out of, and what you and I, got to benefit from when we were growing up. That wasn't a thing, right? It wasn't a thing in our society, right? And so it's almost, I say that the Democrat Party hasn't changed ever. The Democrat Party was the party of the KKK. The Democrat Party was the party of slavery. The Democrat Party was the divisive party that won a Jim Crow South. And when that was defeated by the Republicans, they had to have some other way to divide people on those immutable characteristics, because it's in the DNA, I feel, and especially of the old dogs, it's still a part of the DNA of that party. And it's not by, necessarily having, segregated bathrooms and water fountains, but they are doing other things to socially divide us. Because who feels, honest opinion, who out there feels more comfortable around people of a different race than they did 15 years ago? I would say that a lot of people would feel like they have to walk on eggshells, because we have this long stretch of messaging telling people that the white people are keeping these people down, and this is, that sort of thing. And so that messaging has had a profound impact on our society, and a divisive one, the same divisive type of effect that it had in the 60s.
And it's the same divisiveness that the Democratic Party is utilizing to divide us as a people with every other topic, with COVID and LGBTQ plus and everything else. I mean, they like, if I have gay neighbors, they are great dudes, Both of them are ardent right-wing Republicans, by the way.
Oh, that's awesome.
But my point bringing it up is, like, you're taking people groups and saying, because you are this, you should feel this way about that group.
Right. Well, and that's the same
not
thing.
The spirit of America.
No, but that's the same thing that Mao did in China. That's the same thing that every socialist dictator has done. You have to have an enemy. And you know what I'm saying? There's got to be an enemy. We got to make somebody the enemy. And especially when you divide people into the smallest group possible, you remove the unity, right? We would unify around the red, white, and blue. That would be great. But nope, your group, this is what you have to think. And hey, all you people in this group, if you have defectors, like you're talking about your neighbors who are, gay men those are supposed to be left-wing people. When they're like, no, I'm pretty cool with America. I like my freedoms. Those are the ones that they want to come down on with a flying elbow. They want to come off the top rope on them. And that's just not the way America is. Have your own opinions. Be left-wing, be right-wing, but I prefer that you be right-wing.
Yeah,
I personally
and
prefer
honestly,
you.
Maybe that's a good place to put a pin in it for tonight, is to say, man, that we are a country founded in civic liberty.
Yep.
That your opinion belongs to you.
Yep.
About voting, about your sexual identity, about what you think about American history, about what you think about free speech, about gun rights, about anything else. And that's important. And the spirit of continued freedom is to believe that and to advocate for that to continue, because it's insane. It's actually allow yourself to go to that place. If you're watching this, allow yourself to go to that place where you think, yeah, I think that we should advocate for euthanasia. I think that makes sense. Like, just sit in that thought for a hot second. Post in the comments why you think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fascinated. I'm genuinely starstruck why you think that's a good idea.
Well, I'm going to say, I'm not going to put a pin in it just yet. I have one more topic I want to hit, because if we want to move ourselves closer to the Constitution, individual rights, liberties, freedoms, it all comes down to the vote. And I know a lot of people worry about the vote. I worry about the vote after what we saw in the 2020 election and all the nefarious goings on. Thank you, Glenn Youngkin. After I move out of Virginia, you get Glenn Youngkin coming in, and he says, well, we're going to do paper ballots. And in Virginia, you have to show your ID, so kudos to Virginia. But this is good. This is where we need to go. Paper ballots is all you need. I think it was Brazil or some other monstrous country did their elections all on paper ballots. They had the results the same day. Like, it is entirely possible to do that. And we're America, man. We can definitely do it. But you've got a lot of places where voter integrity is a problem. And so what I would implore anybody still watching to do is, if you live in one of these states, any of the dark green to, that second one, any of those two categories, no ID required, 14 states plus DC, non-strict, non-photo ID in 7 other states. Those are places, a lot of them are battleground states, a lot of them are swing states, This has to be brought up. And it's our job as responsible citizens to write our leaders, to flood their P.O. boxes with mail, to burn up their phones, telling them this is absolutely wrong. This is absolutely lunacy. Because you know what Milton Friedman said? Milton Friedman said, no, you don't have to change Congress. Congress are just like anybody else. They want to keep their job. So you have to make it politically profitable for them to do for the wrong people to do the right thing. And it's just that simple. Make them do it, because they want the security. They want the car service. They want to fly private. They want to do all the things that your representatives get to do. I don't know if they all fly private. They probably don't. But I'm just saying, they want all the little perks, and they want to maintain their little bubble of power. Make them do it. Write them. Call them. Email them.
Jared, what country were you born in?
America, baby.
The United States of America.
Yeah.
And do you welcome people into the United States of America that come here legally?
Oh, 100%.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Welcome. And people that come here legally, are they able to easily access a government issued ID?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They come here legally, you said?
I know friends of every race, religion, and creed that are here in the United States legally. And to a person, I've asked this question no less than 100 times, to a person, everyone that says I'm here, that actually is factually here legally, if they need a government issued ID, they can go get it.
Say it again.
I have a son who's legally able to get an ID, and guess what? He's able to.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not a thing.
No.
Guys, if you want people in office representing the values that America was founded on, if you want people in office representing the values that you hold dear, meaning not standing for euthanasia, or you want people that actually have to produce an ID to actually elect your leaders, as opposed to people that we don't know where they're from, we don't know what their values are, and they get to elect your leaders, maybe keep your ass out. Maybe contact your congressman. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's a good spot to end. I'm going to do it. I didn't do my shout out at the beginning, so I'm going to throw it in now. So there's a guy that I do a podcast with. It's Braver Than the Rest. It's a fantastic podcast. And it's just a bunch of guys hanging out, and we talk about America. We talk about faith. We talk about all kinds of good stuff. And one of the guys makes these coasters. He does leather works. And so I'm going to shout this out. It's Bristol Leather Company. Well, if I get my camera to focus, there we go. The killer one right here is The Trump. Oh man, that's the mugshot.
Iconic. Iconic.
That is so dope. He's got 1776. He's got We the People. He's got like some really great, but he's got wallets. He's got other stuff. I mean, it's fantastic, and it's from Chuck and I's hometown. It's just a guy, small business, and yeah, just give him a shout out. What's that? It's
What's his website?
BristolLeatherCo.com. I believe that's. I looked it up right before we started here. Bristol. Make sure I got it right. BristolLeatherCo.com. Yeah, BristolLeatherCo.com. I'll
BristolLeatherCo.com.
Yeah, in the edit, I'll throw it up on the screen. But yeah, definitely go give him a shout out. Chuck, buddy, this was a fun one tonight. I appreciate it, man. This is a good time. We'll be bringing.
Glad to be the Robin of the Batman.
That's right, man. We'll be bringing you back. We might make this a weekly thing. Let's just do it.
Let's go.
All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, leave comments below. We definitely want to see the comments. We want to hear from you all. We appreciate you hanging with us this long. Have a great day. Love you guys, and God bless America.